Welcome to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast. The P.A.S. Report provides an honest analysis on the critical issues that matter to you without the biased media filters. Here's your host, Professor Nicholas Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report Podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I have a great episode lined up for you. Before I get to it, make sure that you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the PAS Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends and on social media, because what we're witnessing, again, it's not surprising, but it is astounding in a way, and it's tale as old as time, right? Those in positions of authority, they wield their power to shape narratives. They want to control minds. They want to suppress dissent. We've seen this going on for the last several years, but in today's digital age, this manipulation has reached unprecedented levels. We are witnessing a systematic assault on truth, integrity, and quite frankly, the intelligence of the American people. I mean, it shows what little regard that they have, not for me as a conservative. I know they don't like me, but just for ordinary Americans out there, because the narrative is clear. Misinformation, it's the enemy, and those who peddle it must be stopped at all costs. But what happens when those that target misinformation are the ones that are actually spreading the misinformation? Remember that throughout history, governments have been the largest purveyors of misinformation and disinformation. And we used to have a media that actually served as a watchdog over the government. But unfortunately, our legacy media has become a willing extension of the government. They don't care about the truth. Instead, these ideological zealots, they're happy to manipulate information and push a particular narrative, and they don't have any respect for their viewers. That's clear. They'll lie to their viewers day in, day out. The very individuals and institutions entrusted with upholding truth and integrity, they're the ones that are pushing the misinformation, and nowhere is this more evident than the relentless push of the so-called Trump bloodbath lie. But it's not just about the bloodbath lie. It goes far beyond that. These jackals, they lie and manipulate despite the damage it's causing our society, despite the damage it's doing to this country. And it's not just limited to the media. The web of deception, it's being woven by the Biden administration, the media, the bureaucracy, the ideological zealots. And I want to make it clear, it's not to say that the Republicans are much better. They may be slightly better in some respects than this administration and the bureaucracy, but that's not saying much. That's not really that high of a bar. I've been warning about the government abuses. I've been warning about the bureaucracy trampling on our fundamental rights, our liberties. I've been warning about the manipulation in the education system, where they're not teaching American government and civics. Rather, they're indoctrinating the student body with anti-Americanism, where they're pushing this DEI nonsense, where they're trying to break us up into groups, turn us, like Teddy Roosevelt said, into a bunch of squabbling nationalities. And here we are. We're witnessing the results, a culmination of 30 years of a failed education system, a culmination of an out-of-control bureaucracy that hasn't been held accountable for the abuses of power, a culmination of allowing a media to be usurped by partisans, by ideological zealots. This is the result. What we see today. Is our country really better off today? Do people really believe this in their minds? Are our financial budgets in our households better off today? Is the world more stable today? Is our border more secure today? Are energy prices lower today? Is the cost of food lower today? Is our education system performing better today? Is your healthcare better today? The quality of healthcare that you receive today, is it better than what you received 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago? For some of you, the answer may be yes, but for most people, it's no. Are the conditions of our infrastructure better today or worse today? I mean, you look at every single metric, and our lives have become much more difficult. And rather than just admit the obvious, people bury their heads in the sand. They actually buy into the nonsense that's being fed to them. I don't pretend that conservatives are perfect. I don't pretend that we're going to get our way 100% of the time. I don't provide blind support to any politician. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's Trump or anyone else. And I'll call my side out when I see them doing something I don't like. I've called the Republicans to task on numerous occasions when it comes to the concept of fiscal responsibility, because they've been just as irresponsible as Democrats. I've called out Republicans when it comes to some of the foreign endeavors, the never-ending endeavors that we're witnessing, that they want to get us involved in. I called the party out when they say that we can never cut military defense spending despite the massive waste, fraud, and abuse that occurs in the Defense Department when it comes to the budget. I've called the Republican Party to task when it comes to abusing power, when it comes to using executive authority. Doesn't matter if it was Trump or Bush. I call it like I see it. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to elevate anyone. This is America. My loyalty is to the country of the United States. It's not to one person. I don't engage in idolatry. If I see someone doing something wrong, I criticize them. If I see someone doing something right, I praise them. It really is that simple. This is not difficult to understand. However, when we see this onslaught, when we see our entire system becoming weaponized, all in an effort to consolidate power, all in an effort to target nearly half of America, that should outrage each and every person. And if this was going on the other side, it'd call it out too. Biden said a lot of stupid things. And I might mock him and make fun of him. I don't compare him to Hitler. I don't compare him to Mussolini. I don't call him a fascist or a dictator. There are Democrats that are Marxists. I don't pretend they're all Marxists. I know that. And while I criticize Democrats often, I also criticize Republicans. More importantly, the most of my target is actually the bureaucracy. It's the people that are working for government that have abused their power, expanded the power of these agencies, don't even know a damn thing about the Constitution, don't respect the Constitution, and many think that they're the ones that are actually in charge of the system. However, today we are going to challenge some of the narratives that they are so desperate to control. I'm going to look at some of the motives behind these. Trump's bloodbath. He's promising a bloodbath if he doesn't get elected. I want people to recognize the gravity of the situation we're in. Our republic depends on a well-informed citizenry capable of critical thinking, capable of discerning fact from fiction. However, when truth becomes the casualty of the relentless pursuit of power, we will suffer the consequences. And there are some people that are just too damn blind to understand that. There are some people that want to keep their head buried in the sand. And the reason that they do is because they don't like the messenger. They don't like the people and the ideology of the people that are exposing some of these abuses. So today we're going to look at some of this deception because I think that the whole Bloodbath incident, the Bloodbath hoax of 2024, I think it's really revealing because it shows you that they don't even pretend to have any respect for you. And it shows you what little integrity they have. It is important to shine a spotlight on the darkest corners of what's happening in the media, our political landscape, and begin to reclaim the truth. So stay tuned. I'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back, everyone. So what really got my blood boiling was Sunday morning when I woke up. When I woke up, I always make a cup of coffee first because I need my coffee. And then I began looking at the news headlines, right? I went to the Drudge Report, and sure enough, at the top, I don't know what's happened to Drudge, but in bright red, Trump warns of bloodbath if he loses election. I clicked on the headline. It linked to a Guardian article. And the Guardian article, they report the bloodbath line. And that's it. They just went on and on about that line. It didn't mention anything about an auto industry. It didn't mention anything like that. Now, I know that Trump could be careless in his words. I mean, believe me, there's plenty of times I actually criticized him about that. But something didn't sit right with me. It didn't sound right the way they were portraying it. And I did a search. Sure enough, I'm looking at the computer screen, headline after headline, same thing. Bloodbath, 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 bloodbath. Now, when I went to the articles, there was no mention of this auto industry. Finally, I got to an article. I think it was a Newsweek article, which their reporting actually hasn't been too bad lately, I have to say. But the Newsweek article, they had the entire statement, and it's like, oh, okay, makes sense. But what it really reveals is how soulless these people in the media are. It's not like they printed these stories without listening to the clip. This is not like it was an honest mistake and they just screwed up. They intentionally omitted the fact that he was talking about the auto industry. They intentionally did that, and the intent is important because it goes to show deception. See, this is one of those stories, like they can't hide behind the Russian hoax thing, right? Well, we were just reporting what the government was giving us. These pathetic frauds. The New York Times wins a Pulitzer Prize for all their Russia reporting. That all turned out to be wrong, and they keep the Pulitzer Prize. But they can't sit there and blame government officials, saying that government officials were giving us this information, that's why we're reporting it. It doesn't work that way. Here, they made the calculated decision not to include his entire comment. They made that decision, and that's on them. Now, I'm going to play the full clip, not the snippet, that the media is putting out there. I'm going to play the full 1-minute clip of what the former president said at his rally, and then I'm going to play the media and political response to it. Take a listen.
Mexico has taken, over a period of 30 years, 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country. Think of it. Went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories of...
It's clear as day what he's talking about. It's clear as day what he's saying. My 9-year-old could understand what he's talking about. This isn't rocket science. However, the media, they heard that bloodbath thing. They were like, we got our sound clip. We got our 5-second sound clip that we're going to beam out wall to wall. We'll talk about it on our networks. We're going to put it in the headlines of every paper. And we're going to show that this guy is a raving lunatic, because it's not about truth. It's not about objectivity. It's about destruction. And that's what they want. They want to destroy him. They want to destroy him. They want to destroy his supporters. It's clear as day. So take a listen to the media reaction and understand some of this media reaction is actually after they got called out, because I have to say, there were many Democrats that I saw that were like, whoa, you know, you got to call a spade a spade. You can't twist this and say that he was calling for a bloodbath. And I give credit to each and every one of those Democrats that were actually pushing back against this, saying that it was actually unfair. That gives me hope. But here is a clip, a media mashup of all these ghouls screaming about the whole bloodbath thing. And then when they get called out on it, they don't care. They say it doesn't matter that he was talking about the auto industry. It's because of who he is. Take a listen.
What I heard was a continuation of the same rhetoric, the same endorsement of political violence that we've seen from Donald Trump for years, as you pointed out. It goes even farther back.
We are all desensitized and inured to the extraordinary, remarkable, and very, at times, un-American and threatening things that the former president is saying.
We can't take him, look at what he's saying and think, oh, well, we're going to be accurate for this. We're going to say he was referring to the auto industry.
We just have to win this election, because he's even predicting a bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath? There's something wrong here.
We did not miss the full context. This was not some meandering off-message comment. This is his message.
Obviously, he's talking about a bloodbath for America. It's laid out in the terms of it. And these idiots on Twitter, these idiots on cable news, these idiots on Sunday shows going, well, presidents, he was talking only about the auto industry, and this is one more. It's just let me say that at 6:15 a.m. It's just he knew what he was doing. We're not stupid. Americans aren't stupid. He was talking about...
Joe Scarborough has to be one of the biggest morons in television. One of the most pompous, arrogant fools that exists within the media. He epitomizes the privileged class. He epitomizes it. And again, Trump's words were clear. There was no secret. If Trump wants to say something, he's going to say it, right? So if Trump really wanted to say that there was going to be a bloodbath after the election because he's not elected and it had nothing to do with the auto industry, he would say it, because the man doesn't have a filter. Yet these dimwits, they want to twist themselves in a pretzel trying to justify their own idiotic coverage where they got called out for being the liars and frauds that they are. And what these morons don't realize is they're the ones that consistently elevate Trump. If Trump wins in November of 2024, you could actually thank Joe Scarborough, you could thank Joy Reid, you could thank Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, and all these other loons in the media. You could thank Nancy Pelosi. Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas, Kamala Harris. You could thank all them. Thank Hillary Clinton if Trump wins. That's what these fools don't realize. Thank Letitia James. Thank you, Fannie Willis. Thank you, Jack Smith. They will be responsible for getting Trump elected in 2024. And I'll talk more about that when we get back from this quick break. So everyone hang tight. Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, I was alluding to how all those that are really that are on the seek and destroy mission to take down former President Trump, make sure he doesn't become the 47th president, how they're going to be responsible if he wins in 2024. And it's because people see what's going on. They see the abuses of power that exist. See, never once, when Trump won in 2016, never once did they think to themselves, what created the opening for someone like Trump to run and defeat the two strongest political families in this country, the Bush dynasty and the Clinton dynasty? They never asked themselves that question. What were the failures of the Republican Party and the Democrat Party that allowed someone like Trump to win the presidential election? Instead, they just began to attack the people that supported Trump. And they continue to do so to this day. They don't try and understand it, right? They can't figure out why. So we indicted him once. We thought he was going to go down and his poll numbers would tank. We indicted him a second time, then a third time, then a fourth time. We also got a couple civil suits against him. We actually took E. Jean Carroll. We put her to work with the New York State legislative body to pass a law to get rid of the statute of limitations on any sexual abuse claims for 6 months only. It was only a 6-month period so that she could file the lawsuit, and then the law expires, but the lawsuit was already filed. So they go out of their way to try and bring him down, and they don't realize that every time they do that, his poll numbers have gone up, his poll numbers have gone up, his poll numbers have gone up. Why are now nearly 20% of black people potentially supporting the former president? Why are a large number of Hispanic people potentially supporting the former president, right? He's supposed to be this massive racist. Why are the Asian people moving towards a former president? They don't realize that every time they lie and manipulate like this and they get caught, his poll numbers go up. And so now they get to the whole bloodbath thing. And they constantly spew bloodbath. And people aren't idiots. People could easily go check out the 1-minute video clip to hear exactly what Trump was saying, and many have. And so they see that the media is directly, knowingly, and intentionally lying to them. And so maybe now we'll see another bounce. You are now seeing the people that supported Nikki Haley. Just this week alone, 3 articles from 3 Nikki Haley supporters coming out and saying that they are now backing Trump. And they're backing him because of the whole bloodbath comment and the way the media tried to manipulate them. They keep on telling us that, if Trump gets elected, he's going to be the next dictator. As they're the ones that are going out, they're targeting parents at school board meetings. They're trying to infiltrate churches because traditional Catholics are going to be the next domestic terrorists that exists. They want to silence and censor people. You have the mass censorship operation. They want to censor unapproved opinions because your opinion must be granted by the government. They must give their blessing and their approval to it. They want to label cognitive abilities as critical infrastructure. Every week, headline after headline, we see a government agency abusing their power in some sort of way, violating our rights in some sort of way, disregarding the Constitution in some sort of way. But they want to pretend that Trump's going to be the dictator when he comes into office. If he comes into office, it's the end of democracy. If he comes into office, in fact, he's the next Hitler. Take a listen to this clip.
They are, and there's only one issue this year, and it is so overwhelming. If we came back, let's say 100 years from now and looked on what happened that was the most important thing in America in the year 2024, however this election turns out, it will be Americans were given the voluntary choice to become pawns in a dictatorship under a presidency of unimaginable brutality and violence and all sorts of things that are as un-American as anything that we can imagine, or whether they voted against that. Anything about horse race or age or, Trump is more entertaining on the stump, well, that's wonderful. What I would suggest is let's go back to the late 1920s in Germany or the early 1930s. The Nazis and Hitler came to power under a legal system. They did not seize power overnight illegally. They were able to get elected, and one reason that happened was that people didn't realize that if you're voting for Hitler, this could end in the Holocaust and a defeat in World War II.
Yep. 100% author and NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss, thank you.
You are willing pawns that are knowingly going to vote in a dictatorship if you vote for Donald Trump. If you pull that lever, you are voting for the next Adolf Hitler and the violence and the brutality that comes with it. But you're also too stupid to understand that you're voting for potentially the next Hitler. You're too dumb to know that. That's what they think of you. This is the mindset of these people, these authoritarians that tried to lock us down during COVID, kept kids out of school for 2 years, dictated to us when, where we, and how we practice our faith, dictated which businesses are essential and which ones weren't. And remember, liquor stores, they were essential. AA meetings, not essential. Those could go to Zoom. These are the people that we're talking about. Here's another genius. Take a listen to this genius from The View.
It scared me, honestly. You know, I didn't think ever in my lifetime I would see that. I've been watching this show called The New Look, and it goes over what designers were doing in Paris during World War II, during the Nazi occupation. And one character says to another, you know, we took all the things that the Jews had. We took their homes, we took their jewelry, we took all of those things, and now the next step is to dehumanize them, to make sure that they to show people that they have no soul, that they are not human. And he is using that kind of World War II rhetoric that led to the deaths of the murders of 6 million people. And now he is otherizing brown people. He is otherizing black people. He is saying things like this: I don't think you're going to have another election if I don't win, or certainly not an election that's meaningful. He's saying the quiet part out loud. If I am not elected, we are going to see January 6th again. And I think we need to be on guard to make sure that we preserve our democracy so that our country looks the way that it should look, like all of us. It's a diverse country. That's what America was built upon. Yeah.
More Hitler references, the end of democracy again. This coming from a person, Sonny Houston, from The View, who said Trump supporters need to be deprogrammed and re-educated. You have Hillary Clinton calling for a formal deprogramming of Trump supporters. A formal deprogramming, meaning a government body that engages in deprogramming because they think the American people are brainwashed. Who's more dangerous, I ask you? And anyone that is dumb enough to think that Trump will be a dictator. Again, I'm not saying you should support him or not. That's up to you. Every single one of you out there can make your own decisions. You're plenty capable of doing that. And you're plenty capable of choosing who you think is the best person for you, who will improve your life. You're capable of that. But if you really think that former President Trump is going to be a dictator, if you really think that if he's elected, that's the end of democracy, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean or disrespectful, but you're a moron. Do you really believe that this bureaucracy would ever allow him to become a dictator? Do you really believe that they would allow this to happen? You really think that President Trump, once he's in office, that he's going to be able to dismantle this all-powerful federal apparatus? Look at what they tried to do to him the first time. Look at what they've done to him since. And think about how far they're willing to go to prevent it from him becoming president again. Think about the lengths that they would go to. So if he does win, and he does become the 47th president of the United States, I could assure you that if President Trump attempted to end democracy as we know it, and we're a republic, we're not a democracy, but whatever, it's not like they ever read the Constitution, end democracy as we know it, I could assure you that the bureaucracy would take action. I could guarantee you on that. When you look at who has the real power and authority in this country, you begin to understand these types of things. You begin to recognize that while the chief executive is the most powerful person in the entire world, that power is not absolute. And that power is actually extremely limited. And when you go to take on the bureaucracy, well, Chuck Schumer warned. They got 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. So you better watch out. The whole bloodbath thing is just simply one example. It's one example of how the American people are lied to, how they're manipulated, how they're deceived. And I'm going to talk about another thing when we get back from this quick break. So everyone hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So it's not just the bloodbath thing that's going on. We also have to look at January 6th, because last week it was revealed that the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony, the testimony that she stated in front of the January 6th committee, broadcast live in the Hollywood event on television in prime time, that Donald Trump got into the Secret Service vehicle, the Beast, and tried to grab the steering wheel. He tried to fight the Secret Service agent, take control of the steering wheel because he wanted to go to the Capitol building. Well, it turns out that that's not true. Now, we all knew it was BS at the time of the testimony. But what we know is that the Secret Service agent actually testified to the January 6th committee how it was all BS. Now, this is interesting, because why are we just learning about this now? Why didn't the January 6th committee reveal it as soon as they knew? Instead, we have to wait over a year to get this new information, even though they all knew it back then, and they let the media run wild with that story. So it's not just the media, it's the politicians as well. It's those in powers as well that are lying and manipulating and trying to deceive. They're the ones holding back. And it's not just with the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony. We also learned that, yes, Trump did authorize 10, 20,000 National Guard troops, offered it to the Capitol Police. That request was rejected. He offered as many as he could get on several occasions. Again, we knew that back then, but now we have the official documentation. But there's still a lot we don't know, right? If the January 6th committee lied about those two things and didn't reveal that they knew that to the public, what else didn't they reveal? Aren't you at least curious to try and know what else they didn't reveal to the American public? What else people testified to behind the scenes that hasn't been released? And we can't find out because half the testimony's missing, computer drives are gone, potential documents may have been destroyed, then there's password-protected documents, and the Democrats in the January 6th committee is not giving up those passwords, but we're still supposed to pretend they're honest. That's what we're supposed to pretend. In the words of Joe Biden,
come on, give me a break, man.
And I don't know if it's funny or sad, but when you actually bring this stuff up, you actually talk about it to people, you'll get people to push back. What documents did they destroy? What are they hiding? And then you tell them, oh, well, that's not a big deal. So what? Trump didn't lunge for the steering wheel. So what? The January 6th committee lied to us and didn't reveal the truth. So what? That Peter Navarro is actually going to jail because he refused to comply with the January 6th congressional subpoena, and yet Cassidy Hutchinson, which may have committed perjury, well, that's okay. It's not a big deal. And she didn't necessarily commit perjury because she was going by second and third hand accounts of what people were telling her. But were people really telling her that, or was she actually coached to say that? I'd like to know. It's not a big deal that Trump ordered National Guard, offered them to the Capitol Police. That we don't care that the January 6th committee didn't reveal that to us. That doesn't change anything because he's the next Hitler. So it doesn't matter. We could break every single rule. We could violate all norms. We could destroy the republic, destroy the idea of democratic principles, interfere in elections, all because he's the next Hitler. That's how insane this whole thing has gotten. And again, God only knows what we don't know. God only knows what they know behind the scenes. Don't forget, during the entire Russian collusion hoax, both the media and the politicians, Congressman Adam Schiff, the imbecile, the weasel that he is, they were getting testimony behind the scenes that there was no basis for any investigation into Trump-Russia collusion. But they didn't care. They still went out in public. Adam Schiff still went out in public and said that he had more than circumstantial evidence that Trump was working with the Russians. Again, no consequence, because he's Hitler. That's why. He is the next Benito Mussolini. And so the ends justify the means. They could do whatever the hell they want, consequences be damned, but there aren't any consequences. Well, maybe there will be. Maybe there will be in November. You look at Letitia James here in New York and how she's licking at the chompers. She's going to be able to padlock his businesses. She's going to be able to have a fire sale of his businesses, take over Trump Tower and all the other properties and hotels he owns. Take over Mar-a-Lago because he can't pay a ridiculous $450 million civil penalty, all because he got lower interest rates and actually paid loans back. Unlike people like Al Sharpton that have, I don't know how many $1 million of taxes does that guy owe? But Trump's the enemy of the state, right? And that's what he's been deemed, the enemy of the state. And so if he can't come up with this money, and all the bondholders said that they've never given out a bond this large, that all cash needs to be put up front, they've never done a bond this large. Corporations can hardly get 10 million, 15 million. An individual needing 400 million, 450 something million. Ain't going to happen. And so what are they going to try and do? Watch, they're going to go after Trump's private jet. Take that away from him. This way he can't campaign. You want to talk about election interference? There's your election interference. They're trying to bankrupt him before the election. And again, the methods, it doesn't matter because it's Trump. So it's okay. They accept it. And there's millions of people that will go along with it. They'll accept it as well because it's Trump. It's Hitler, right? And they don't care how much damage they inflict on the Republic. They could care less if the Republic stands. As long as they get their man, they're good. As long as they can take out his political opposition, they're happy. Demoralize them, marginalize them, deprogram them, re-educate them, and maybe even purge them. They're okay with that because that's how they operate. So pay attention, people. There's a lot going on. And all these frauds need to be held accountable. All of them do. Because we can never let this happen again to anyone again. I don't care if they are a Republican. I don't care if they're Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. I don't care what their political philosophy is. This is not the America I knew. This is not the America I was born in. This is not the America I grew up in. That's the America I want to get back to. That's the America I want my kids to grow up in. And I should hope that's the America you want to live in and you want your children to live in. So if you found the content of this episode informative, please give the P.A.S. report a 5-star review. Take 30 seconds to write a nice review on any podcast platform that allows it. And share this episode with your family and friends, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok while you still have it, wherever. Share the episode. I want to thank you for joining me. I'll be back on Monday with another great episode of P.A.S. Report Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast.
Have a good one. Bye.
Be sure to rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. Also, visit PASreport.com and follow us on Twitter at PAS Report.